Welcome in South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. Ashlyn, Sullivan, Al Morganti here with you, and we got 25 games remaining in this hockey season. It's a push unlike any other, and when I saw 25, I was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't feel like that, right? It feels like we still have so much hockey left to be played, and it doesn't feel like we've covered this much of the season already.
Well, you've been gone.
I know.
I don't know where you were. We had to make do without you. You were out of the country, I guess.
Yes, I'm very busy. A world traveler. If you
Yeah,
will.
well, nice.
I went to Georgia.
Same thing. Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. And while you were gone, not much really. I mean, not much in terms of movement in the standings and all. Mm-hmm. But I do think, Ashlyn, I'm starting to feel better about it. Like a little bit positive that they're gonna make the playoffs. So I'm feeling a little bit better on what's gone on, and mostly not because of the Flyers, because of the teams behind them just can't seem to win.
100%. It's not like the Flyers are breaking barriers here. And I will say, I think let's go back to that stadium series and that game specifically against the Devils, where it was an incredible experience. It was so impressive that they put 70,000 people to watch a hockey game in that degree of weather. It was so cold. And I think people were, and I get it because it's on such a big stage, it's on national television, you would have liked to see the Flyers show up and be more competitive. But in the grand scheme of things, it really is just one game. And that Devils team, they're so confusing because they come out with all of these stars, they beat the Flyers' butt, and then they lose miserably to the Rangers the next game.
Yeah, the Devils, they play well against the Flyers for whatever reason. They do, but they've fallen apart. They've had so many opportunities to pick up on that. Like that looked like the game, Ashlyn, where I was worried, like, oh, man, they had a big opportunity against the Devils, and the Devils really took over the game.
I thought the Devils were going to go on a run.
Yeah, why aren't they going to go on a run? But I think it shows you, like, the Flyers' ability to rebound from stuff like that, and while you were gone, as they say. So the Flyers come back, and Tortorella ran some of the really most difficult practices I've seen all year. It was like going back to the beginning of the season, and I think what he saw was that the game slipped, and you saw it outside, inside, outside, wherever it is. And so we come back, we're watching Tortorella and the staff run these practices, screaming and yelling, and so I'm like, wow.
Was the rope back out?
The rope was not back out, but it was pretty good. I mean, I was enjoying it, watching it, and like you could hear what was just screaming about things, not like tormenting players, but getting his point across on what they had to do. So I think what they saw was, we've slipped a little bit here, and we got to get back to our game. We're going to get into it. So it was a good rebound, and then they came back, of course, and won a game.
Yes.
But it was but I think he was fearful of what everybody saw at that outdoor game. Like, what's happened? All of a sudden, they've lost some of their mojo.
100%. And John Tortorella post-game stadium series was some of the best press conference I've seen all year long, because it was reporters that aren't normally covering this team. So they kept pushing him on playoffs. What are his expectations? When does he think there'll be a lock to get in? And he was not having it. And he mentioned this game against the Blackhawks on Wednesday night, how much that game scared him because of Bedard, because of it being on the road. So I thought it was strong for the Flyers to bounce back. The third period didn't look as great, but you had Travis Konechny coming back, and I thought the Flyers really needed to handle business against a team they should have beaten.
Yeah, and I think that's why I had those practices, because he really was worried about what's going to happen here. So they got out of there, and the goalie played better. Ersson did not have a good outdoor game. And I know I really like him. I think he's handled the pressure really well after their situation that happened with Hart. That he really stood tall. But they're going to need him throughout the remainder of the season here. So I thought it was important that, as in addition to the team bounce back, that he certainly bounced back in that game.
100%. And now you have the Flyers only one win away from matching their season win total last season with 25 games remaining. So that shows you the difference in this year to last year. And we got to talk a little bit about Travis Konechny as well. He's on 8 straight games with a point. And I thought this was really interesting. Post-game Wednesday after the Flyers beat the Blackhawks, John Tortorella slightly comparing Travis Konechny to Artemi Panarin, saying he's a well-conditioned athlete, best player I've ever seen play tired, talking about Panarin, and saying TK has a little bit of that in him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a stretch because of the skill level. I guess I'll put it that way, a finishing level. But Konechny can finish the end of a shift and go with energy. And that's where I think he sees. I think he wants. They need Konechny to be the Panarin, and I think with Konechny, it's interesting to see how Tortorella's dealt with him from the beginning, from a couple of years ago, from a year ago till now. How he's pumping up his tires now, rather than pointing out things, because Konechny points out his own mistakes, so he can kind of pump it up. And I think he needs, and the team needs Konechny to feel like he's their Panarin. If you really look at it objectively, Panarin.
Not the same player.
Well, no, it's a far different animal. Konechny runs on all, energy and voltage, and he can finish, obviously, but boy, he's got to go full bore all the time. And but I think when you're looking at it, that's what they need. They need him to be as close to a Panarin in terms of, we're in trouble, somebody get us out of here. It's got to be Konechny.
100%. And then there was a great article, and I think everyone really right now is shifting gears to, are the Flyers actually going to make the playoffs? Like we said, 25 games remaining. Still so much could happen in 25 games. I know it seems like that's not a lot, but every single night this is shifting. And I think, Al, your point, and it's so true. I don't want to say the Flyers are getting lucky because, like we said, one away from matching last season's win total. They're so much better this year. But if any of the teams below the Flyers in the Metro got their act together, this would be a totally different story.
Yeah, especially the Devils and the Penguins and the Flyers. Big weekend coming up. But those teams there, Washington, that can still have room. There's still, I guess we call it runway for those teams, but they're running out of it, especially the Devils. Time. It's like, what is going on here? You need a goaltender. I mean, I look at things, obviously we're just Flyer-centric, but if I'm a Devils fan, I'm going, what on earth? I mean, what does it take?
You've got to be so upset.
You got to do something here. I mean, you've got a shot. You've got Hughes. You've got some offense. You can really go sometimes. You got to shut things down. So, I mean, there's time and there's a trade deadline. I feel really good about the Flyers making it a lot because of what's going on behind them. However, man, these 25 games, there's only 3 or 4 games against teams that are under 500. The league's only got like 8 or 9 of them because of hockey 500. But when you look at their schedule, there's a lot of really tough games. And the trade deadline, if they do move people, and I think that they will, that March 8th date might be where you say, how are they going to play afterwards if it is subtraction? What's going to happen then?
Yeah, I think it all depends on who you subtract. I mean, you have to look at this roster and think, if he's gone tomorrow, how much does this impact the team? And I don't think we give enough credit to someone like a Sean Walker, who's probably number one trade target.
Absolutely.
How much he does, especially with this Rasmus Ristolainen injury. We don't know when he's coming back. That leaves a gaping hole in this defense. But I get it in the Flyers' position. If you get a first-round pick.
And Lawton.
Yeah, you got to trade him.
There's a couple of guys that late in the game you really wonder about. Yeah, and so, I mean, that is the one wild card that I see going in. Like, what are they gonna do? Which is really this is one of the most interesting trade deadlines coming up that I've been involved with in a long time, because it's not like it used to be where what are we going to pick up to go for a cup run. It's what are we going to subtract and still have a playoff run.
Right.
And to get that's really interesting.
It is. And I think at times we make this bigger than it is, the glue of the locker room. Like, oh, what happened if this guy gets subtracted? But a Scott Lawton, I go back to the story of the Squirtle saxophone song Postgame, which picks up speed every time it's played. But he was that guy. He created the playlist. Like, he's the guy that presses play when they win.
Yeah.
And I just think about how awkward that is when all of a sudden he's not there anymore.
Yeah, and Ashlyn, you can't have it both ways. If your coach for the first 3 quarters of the season, when he's asked why is your team different, and he says it's our locker room, it's so close. Well, if you take pieces away, that's a big deal, especially for this team. So, I mean, I think that's the decisions I got to make, and I think they're gonna fall on the side of the future if they get really big offers for some people, and they probably will, with more teams that think they have a real chance to make a run at a Stanley Cup.
And they've basically warned fans that's exactly what's happening. I mean, John Tortorella has, Danny Briere has, that we're going with the future here, and I think that's going to be upsetting come this trade deadline, but it's not a surprise. I've been saying this the past 3 months, and I credit them for that, the honesty, upfrontness, and to the locker room as well. Yeah,
he's like, it's a weird thing to have. I've heard a coach talk about the trade deadline. One might be missing. It's like a warning. It's like he's telling. like your
don't watch.
Well, it's like your dad. You're going to run out of gas if you don't put gas in the car. I mean, you keep telling.
It's like, be quiet.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then you're on the side of the road going, damn.
Yep.
He was right. and it was like, I feel like he's warning this. But I keep looking, going, I guess I'm the optimist looking at it and saying, boy, I watch them play. They play hard. And the goalie's a huge, huge part of what's going to happen here. And some of the kids coming up, my Forster comes back from injury. Maybe he picks it up. And the other key guy is, and we mentioned it time and again, Morgan Frost. And I'm like, I watch him some nights. I go, wow, what a good skill playmaker. And I don't want to make fun of analytics. However, when I read the analytics on him after a game, and it says it looked like he's the world champion, but I watched the game, and I'm like, I don't see it.
No.
But he drives numbers as much as anything, and he's critical. I just wish he could. I always thought he could get their power play going, and it doesn't look like that's going to be it, man. And we've talked about this all year. If the goaltending stands up, and their power play goes, I think they really can, even if they make a move, hang in the playoff position. Whatever the case, it's going to go to the wire.
100%.
And that's going to be helpful in just terms of fan interest going in late into the season.
Yeah, it is not going to be a lock, especially if these teams behind them pick up even some sort of steam going forward. And you mentioned the schedule the rest of the way, and it starts this weekend because we just saw the Rangers and the Devils last night. The Rangers beat the Devils 5-1. Well, the Flyers will see them.
They
on
beat
Saturday.
the Devils. That's capital B, capital E, capital A, capital T.
They didn't get their first goal until well after the game started. And then you have the Pittsburgh Penguins on Sunday, which they're a bit of a disaster right now, but you can never write them off. They just appear to be a little lost, so very inconsistent this season. I read an article in Pittsburgh, and they're like, what is going on with the Penguins? They're losing their mind because they have high expectations. But these two games this weekend, they're tough.
They're tough. And the Rangers, I mean, they can look like a wagon, and they look like a wagon right now, and they run over people too. And it's the Rangers, so it's a big deal. And it's we're not doing the game because it's national TV, both on national TV. So it's a big weekend. It's a spotlight weekend against those two teams. If you told Flyers fans all season long you're going to play 82 games and 41 of them against the Rangers and 41 against the Penguins, say, okay, we're good. Yeah. that's what we want to see. But Pittsburgh's like, if they miss the playoffs again with Sidney Crosby, it's like then it's like
erasing his career.
It's like, what is he going to do? Is he going to want to stay there? I mean, I guess he's a Penguin for life, but my God, you're going to want to go through this with all older players and you're not getting going. So, I mean, the good part is Flyers play very well there against Pittsburgh, and it brings out the best in them too. But this is if the Flyers ever were able to get through both, if they get 3 out of 4 points in this weekend, I think I would say they're in.
I agree.
And then everybody would tell me I'm crazy because of what's coming up. But I think if they could get to three or four, that would be, to me, that would be terrific to get that.
I totally agree. It just proves that you can play with the best, which they have all year. Yeah. Very rarely have they gotten run out. That's why that Stadium Series was so disappointing, because they just looked so much slower than the Devils the entire game. And when they would get momentum, they would lose it right away. And it wasn't the game that we characteristically have seen from the Flyers all year. No,
it wasn't. And you saw why Devils fans are out of their minds on why don't you fix the defense when you see a team that can scoot like that. And then you see the Flyers had to follow a Hathaway game plan in that game to get things, to hang in there and to get things done. And that's a guy that's another reason, I think under the radar kind of a guy that if Lawton does end up going, I think Hathaway's far more important than a lot of people expect in that room and just on the ice.
100%. He's that veteran presence, the reason they brought him in. He had an awesome quote the other day in an Athletic article by Kevin Kurz. He said, it's the guys banding together knowing there is only one way to get into the playoffs, playing the right way, playing the hard way, playing the way we've been playing all season long, basically saying there is one way to do this. And right now we're doing it. And kind of admitting to me when I read that, I was like, that's admitting, all right, we don't have the skill that these other teams have. We've been saying that all year. They're missing superstars. But if we play this way, we believe we're getting in.
And that's we've said it from the beginning, that's a difficult way to play the whole way. Oh, it's grinding. And especially grinding when teams pick up their game, their skill, their speed. Flyers been pretty fast in terms of transition, move the puck. But when other teams then pick up their game, that's when it's really hard to play that game. It's exhausting to play that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now they've got a line, and I like the way Tortorella shuffles his lines, get guys in. Paling's become more important in
Big
it.
time.
It looks like Cates has sort of refound his game a little bit, and that would be important coming down. Those are the guys that help you kind of grind away at that game. And then you're relying on Konechny to be Panarin. Mm-hmm. When that happens.
Basically.
Yeah.
But I remember, because we've said this all year long, where we said, all right, they have to play this way, right? How long can they keep this up? And truthfully, to me, when they had that skid going into the All-Star break, I said, all right, that's it. They've played this hard as long as they possibly can. It was a great run. It was so fun, but we've seen where they've run into the wall and they can't overcome it. But now here we are, 25 games remaining, and they're right back where they need to be.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer questioning how long can they keep this up playing this way.
Because the wall's got holes in it.
Yeah,
that's what's happened, and they managed to bounce back. I mean, it's a big jump from last year. You mentioned number of wins. You're going to match the number of wins.
25
So I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, you look at Coach of the Year candidates. To me, there's two: Tocchet out in Vancouver, and they're sliding now, and Tortorella. So I mean, that's how good a job has been done here.
Yes. So like we like to say always, I don't want to say the vibes are really high, but they're getting back up where they need to be.
They are.
Yeah.
They're getting back up, and it's a big weekend coming up. A big the place will be packed on one weekend game. Then they come back they play St. Louis. I think it's St. Louis on Monday, and I think that's the gritty earmuff night.
Got the Lightning coming up.
My God.
Oh
and
boy.
It's like
Calendar's not looking so pretty. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like you look beyond this weekend. Like I know everybody will feel better if they get 2-3 points out of this weekend. Then you look ahead and you go, wow.
Don't hold your breath.
Look at this. And then there's teams like all thinking that they're going to get in the playoffs. So we're going to fortify themselves. So it's just hang in. Just don't get shut out this weekend, and all these hopes will drop again.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Buckle up. It's going to be interesting. Thanks for tuning in to South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. We will see you next week.